Hi there, I'm Angela. Welcome to the channel or welcome back. Today I'm doing my first full garden tour of the season. If that sounds interesting to you, then come with me. Before we really get into it, I realized I never did the third video in the planting series that I promised you guys. And that is because I never did that planning for my own garden myself this year. That one was going to be where I talked about how to space out each type of plant in your garden beds. And the season just kind of took over and just took hold and left. It like left the station without me. So I was like straggling behind, trying to get caught up on all my planting. So I was just like planting as I go. No plan, just figure it out as I go. So what I'm going to do instead is just to show you how I planted everything in each of the beds. So maybe that'll be helpful. Let's look at the garden. Coming into the garden, we've got raised bed number 1, which has onions in it. Last year this bed was full of peppers and they grew like gangbusters. This year I had a different plan for the peppers, so I just did onions in here. I had a ton of onion seeds that I started, and basically I just planted them about 6 inches apart, like in a grid format. I had so many extra seedlings that I put a bunch in these grow bags here, along with some leeks. And I still have extra seedlings. We'll pan over to my bench right there. And at this point, I don't even think those will go in the ground. I might find places here and there to tuck them away. In the second bed here, we have garlic. And that was planted last fall. It's not ready to harvest yet. And in these planting buckets here, I mostly have herbs. Let's see, that one is sage. I don't know all of these off the top of my head yet. I was like planting like crazy. We've got sage, wild thyme, got some lavender starts there. That is just a weed. There's nothing intentional growing in there. There's some chives, which have already flowered. They came back from last year. And then this one is hyssop. I've never successfully grown hyssop before. I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for yet, but I just wanted to grow it. Bed number 3 are my cabbages. This is the same bed where I grew cabbages last year, and I feel like I can finally successfully grow cabbages after 3 failed years of trying. So I have about 4 different varieties of cabbage in there. The netting is there to protect them from the dreaded cabbage moth. Down here I've got more herbs. I have to look at the tags on these. Germander, that came back from last year. This one is lemon balm. Yes, wonderful. If you guys have never grown lemon balm, give it a try. It smells so good, and I do hope to use it to make some herbal tea with at some point. And this one is mountain mint. All 3 of these came back from last year. In the 4th bed here, I've just recently seeded along the front row of the trellis here with melon seeds. They have not sprouted yet. And then along the back row, we've got our hops plants that of course are perennials and come back bigger and better than ever each year. So I'm trying to keep those controlled where they just take up half of the trellis, like in between those 2 frames there. And then let me walk around here. On the back side, I've got cucumbers planted along here. Last year my cucumbers just fizzled out, and when they finally did kind of take hold and start growing, the wildlife got them. So it looks like I've got 1 seedling that's popped up there. It's Early Fortune, and 2 other varieties that have not germinated yet. I've got parsley here and some borage starts in that bucket, along with what looks like a bunch of weeds, so I'm going to have to weed that. Got my big irrigation mess here because we have not set that up yet. Over on the other side, I've got some more empty grow bags waiting to be filled with soil and planted in, and then some more of these buckets that haven't been planted in yet. Probably do flowers in those buckets. And I've got some calendula going in here along with like weed sprouts. The weeds just take over. In this bed I have beans, all kinds of beans, all kinds of varieties. All the bush beans and semi-pole beans are in here. And this netting is here in an attempt to protect these from the deer because I still have not gotten a fence up around the garden. We did have a couple of quotes for fencing last year, and they were all crazy out of this world pricey, like $9,000 and above. And that's not for our whole property. It was just for my garden area here. So given that, we went ahead and bought an auger, like a 3-foot auger. We are going to start setting in fence posts and making a fence ourselves. And then at this half of the bed I seeded with squash, which has not germinated yet except for this one here, which is called cash flow, and of course weeds. It's a battle. And along the front, in front of all the beans, I've got peppers there. Started those back in February inside, and they are doing quite well. I already have, like, a number of these plants have peppers on. So this one is called Tequila Sunrise. And there's a couple of more. This one is a chocolate bell pepper. I'm trying to keep this fencing so that it doesn't cover the peppers but just protects the beans. I've knock on wood, and I might be jinxing myself, I've never had an issue with any critters trying to eat my pepper plants, except occasionally a little bit of slug damage, which is easy to control. And I've got, this one is called a Lively Italian. Grew it last year. It did really well. Those peppers get about 6 inches long, and they're similar in flavor to a bell pepper. And then the last bed over here, I've got more chives that came back from last year, and I just let them flower out because I think it's so pretty. And the flowers did help bring in some little bees. And this bed kind of mimics almost exactly what that bed is. So we've got beans under the netting here to grow up on a trellis, little wire structures. Let's see if we can see those a little better. If you can see those, they're like accordion shaped structures for plants to grow up on. And then along the front I've got more pepper plants. Oh, and then a few little onions I tucked in right there. This variety of pepper is called Aura. And this one was actually the first one to start getting peppers on it. So I'm so excited about that. And this is a cabbage plant. I had so many extra cabbage seedlings, I just kind of stuck one in there to see how it would do. And then again, this end of the bed is all squash seeds that have not germinated yet. And looking across the way, that's where we started. And in these grow bags here are more peppers and some tomato seedlings. And this is an eggplant. These are some wildflowers that are coming back. I don't know if that's going to be a zinnia or what that's going to be. So I just let that pot overwinter to see what would happen. I am going to run into an issue once these tomatoes start getting bigger because I am out of tomato cages, and what I'll probably have to do is use stakes and just tie them up to the stakes. So going around to the back here, I've got my grow bags, which these are a lifesaver until we get all the beds in place that I would like to have. So in the grow bags back here, all tomatoes. I'm growing like 28 varieties of tomatoes. It's too many for me to repeat off the top of my head. There's a lot. And then these bags going down the row with the netting over it are sunflowers, and they're doing quite well. The reason that I put this netting over it is because I have had critters munch on my sunflowers when they were small, just trying to get started, so I think I'll keep them covered until they're kind of big enough to fend for themselves. And just randomly in this bag here, I sowed some beet seeds a while back, and they are coming up. Now I'm kind of wishing I would have saved this for more tomatoes, but at this point it took a while for the beet seeds to germinate, so I'm going to leave it as is, even though it's taking up one of my buckets, when really I could have just tucked the beets in here and there. It's all right though. More tomatoes in the grow bags. And we finally got our raised bed number 7, which is a 3-foot by 12-foot bed, set in. I didn't stain this one this sort of, you know, orange or rusty color like I did all the other ones. I'm kind of torn on whether I just want to let these go back to the natural wood color and look weathered. I was staining them all to match the color of our house and our shed, which is that burnt orange color. So I'm still, if I wanted to stain it now, I could. I just wouldn't be able to get real close to the ground there. I don't know. I'm still toying with what I'll do there. But I just got this one planted today. It has more tomatoes and then pepper seedlings tucked in between. So a lot of different varieties of peppers, same like my tomatoes. I kind of went crazy with those. Apologies if you guys can hear the gunshots. It's one of our neighbors just having some fun, I guess. Also, I did not get enough soil for this bed. The beds are 12 inches from top to bottom, so there's 2 6-inch cedar boards there. And I picked up 10 bags of 1.5 cubic foot raised bed soil because that's all that I had in my budget to spend, and it only filled it up to 6 inches, which will be enough to grow things. I mean, it'll work. I just wish I could have gone a little bit deeper, you know, higher up with the soil level, especially for the tomatoes, but I think it'll do fine. And to bring you over to our greenhouse and to show you what we're using it for at this time, I wanted to try growing some tomatoes in here. So that's what these are in the grow bags there. And here I've just got stakes inserted that I can tie them up to. And then this might seem a little bit crazy, but in these other grow bags, I'm doing corn. That is because last year when I grew corn out in the main garden, we got 4 ears of corn for us. Just 4. Squirrels took all of it. So I am going to try growing it in the greenhouse this year. And since it's only wind pollinated, it doesn't matter if insects get in here or not. The tomatoes are a different story, and I might have to hand pollinate those. With the corn, what I did last year, because they were covered in netting, was just like shake the stalks in each bucket, and it germinated fine. The ears developed. It's just we never got to harvest them because the squirrels would beat us to it, like just as they were ripening. So I'm not worried about that. I am a little bit worried because it's going to get like super hot in this greenhouse, so without a fan. So what we have done is, I'm going to turn you back around. So turning you back around, what we did was to make a screen door. Oh, we're starting to get a little rain, that fits exactly in the opening of the greenhouse, just out of 1x strips of wood. And we're propping the main doors open with these bricks. So between the screen doors and the open window that stays open all the time, I'm hoping that this will get enough air circulation and not overheat too much. It's something I'll definitely have to keep my eyes on and see how it goes. We kept this right side of the screen open so I could easily go in and out for water and to check on things. We'll see. I feel like the whole thing is just a big giant experiment, and we'll just have to see. So I know the greenhouse thing might seem a little crazy, but until we get a fence up, you gotta try crazy things. And even if we had like a fence like tall enough, like 8-10 feet tall, solid privacy fence, or like a metal grid fence, That would keep the deer out, but it wouldn't keep the squirrels out, and it probably would not keep the raccoons out. So last year, deer got my beans, squirrel got the corn, the raccoons got a lot of the tomatoes. So I'm going to just hope that the corn is protected in the greenhouse, that the beans are protected by the netting I've put over them. And as for like my tomatoes right back there, I'm not sure like what I'm going to do about that. What I may do is to cover the individual fruits with like netting bags. We did get some little netting bags for our nectarine tree to protect the fruits there from insect damage. That's what it's made for. I might try those on the tomatoes. It seemed like a lot of work, but that's what you get, especially if you're like out a ways, like away, kind of out in the woods a little bit like we are, and there's the critters, or we're outnumbered by the critters big time. And I feel like even in suburbia and even in urban gardens, they have their own share. You guys have your own share of wildlife problems. And if it's not four-legged furry critters, then it's insects, or it's the things you can't see, like bacterial diseases and things like that. So we're always battling something as gardeners, but we love it, so that's what we do. So that's it for today's garden tour. I hope you found this interesting or helpful, and that's all I have for you. Until next time, bye.